Right now, while you're watching this, something is happening that almost nobody on Earth knows about. A robot smaller than a car spent 4 years listening to the ground on Mars. It picked up something that should not exist. Mars was supposed to be a dry, frozen rock, but deep under the surface, sealed in cracks you cannot see, there's enough liquid water to cover the whole planet in a shallow ocean. This is the story of what NASA just admitted about Mars. If stories like this are why you are here, subscribe now and turn on the bell, because the next few minutes are going to change how you see the red planet forever. For most of your life, you have been told a simple story about Mars. It is a dead world. It is dry. It is cold. It is a wasteland. Nothing lives there. Nothing flows there. The only water on the planet is locked up as ice at the poles, or hiding under the dirt as permafrost, the way frozen ground hides in Siberia. Scientists have said this for decades. Textbooks have said it for decades. Movies have said it for decades. And for a long time, the evidence seemed to back it up. The orbiters that flew around Mars took pictures of a place that looked like a desert. Cracked dust, dusty rocks, skies the color of a dusty sunset. No clouds, no rain, no rivers, no oceans. Just rust and rock, as far as the eye could see. So the story felt settled. Mars was once maybe wet, billions of years ago. And then something happened. The air got thin, the water got lost, and Mars turned into the quiet, dry, dead thing we see today. That is what everyone agreed on. That is what almost every space agency on Earth believed. That is what NASA had been telling us for years. Until now. But here is the part they are not telling you. That story is wrong. Not a little wrong. Not a maybe wrong. Wrong in a way that changes the entire picture of what Mars really is, what it once was, and what might still be living there right now, under your feet, on another planet. And the proof did not come from a fancy new telescope. It did not come from a billion-dollar flagship mission. It came from a small, cheap, almost forgotten robot that was supposed to die after 2 years. It lived for 4. It listened to the ground the whole time. And what it heard was so strange that a team of scientists at the University of California at Berkeley had to sit down and stare at the screen for a long time before they believed what they were looking at. What they found is one of the biggest surprises in the history of Mars exploration. And almost nobody's talking about it. To understand why this is such a big deal, you have to understand what NASA thought Mars was like before this discovery. And to understand that, you have to go back to the beginning. A long time ago, about 4.5 billion years ago, Mars was not the place we see today. It had a thick atmosphere. That means it had weather. It had clouds. It had rain. Rivers carved deep valleys into the ground. Some of those valleys still exist today, and when you see them from orbit, they look just like dry riverbeds on Earth. There are also shorelines. There are ancient beach lines carved into the rock, where an ocean once lapped against the land. Scientists believe Mars had an ocean that covered about a third of the planet, maybe more. That ocean may have been 100 meters deep, maybe more in some places. It was not a small puddle. It was a real ocean. And the air was thick enough that water could flow on the surface without boiling away. Liquid water, pools, streams, lakes, maybe even a sea. Mars was wet. Mars was warm. Mars was, for a while, a place where life could have started. Then something happened. Nobody knows exactly what. Probably the planet's magnetic field died. A magnetic field is like an invisible shield around a planet that protects it from the sun's radiation. When Mars lost its magnetic field, the sun started stripping away the atmosphere. Slowly at first, then faster. The air got thinner. The pressure dropped. Without thick air, water cannot stay liquid on the surface. It boils away, or it freezes, or it disappears into the ground. So the oceans shrank. The lakes vanished. The rivers dried up. And Mars turned into the cold, dry, dead thing we see today. That is the story. That has been the story for as long as anyone can remember. And it raised a question that has bugged scientists for decades. Where did all the water go? The math did not add up. If Mars was once that wet, and if the only place the water could have gone was up into space as vapor, there should be signs of it. There should be fingerprints of water loss in the upper atmosphere. There should be minerals on the surface that show what kind of water once flowed there. There should be some kind of trail. And there were some clues, but they were not enough to explain all the water, not even close. It was like walking into a room and finding a puddle on the floor, but the windows were closed and the roof was solid. Where did the water come from? Something did not add up. And here is the twist. The water did not leave. A lot of it is still there. It just went underground. And we did not know how much until now. In 2018, NASA landed a small robot on Mars called InSight. It was not a rover. It did not roll around. It was a stationary lander, which means it sat in one place and used its instruments to study what was happening under the ground. It had a seismometer, which is a fancy word for a machine that listens for vibrations in the ground, the way a doctor uses a stethoscope to listen to your heart. Quakes on Mars are called Marsquakes, and every time a Marsquake happens, the shaking travels through the layers of rock underneath the lander. By listening to how those vibrations move, scientists can figure out what the inside of the planet is made of. Think of it like tapping on a wall. If the wall is hollow, it sounds different than if the wall is solid. InSight listened to Mars for 4 years. It recorded hundreds of Marsquakes. Some were small, some were bigger. And every single one of them told a story about what was happening deep below the surface. In 2022, scientists started noticing something strange in the data. The seismic waves were moving slower than expected. Slow seismic waves usually mean one of two things. Either the rock is hot, or the rock has liquid in it. Hot rock made sense in some places. Mars has a hot interior, just like Earth. But InSight was not sitting on a hot spot. It was sitting in a flat, boring part of Mars called Elysium Planitia, which is basically the most average spot on the planet. So why were the seismic waves slow? Why did it sound like there was water under the ground? Scientists scratched their heads. They checked and double-checked. They published a paper in 2022 saying that Mars had more water under its surface than anyone thought. But even that paper was cautious. It said there might be water. It said it was possible. It said more research was needed. Nobody wanted to make a big claim without proof. Then, in 2024, a team at the University of California at Berkeley took all the InSight data and ran it through a new kind of analysis. They used every Marsquake InSight ever recorded. They used every measurement from every instrument on the lander. And they came back with something nobody expected. The water was not just a little bit. The water was a lot. The water was oceans worth of water. Deep under the surface of Mars, between about 5 and 8 kilometers down. In some places, as deep as 20 kilometers, there are layers of broken rock filled with liquid water. Not ice, not vapor. Liquid. The kind of water you could drink if you could get to it. And the math they ran suggests there could be enough water down there to cover the entire surface of Mars in an ocean about 1 kilometer deep. Read that again. 1 kilometer deep. That is not a puddle. That is an ocean, hidden in the cracks of rock we cannot see, sealed away from the cold air and the dry sky, sitting there quietly for billions of years, maybe. The study was published in a major science journal. Other teams checked the math. Other teams checked the math again. And it held up. NASA had to admit it. The assumption that Mars was a dry, dead, waterless world was wrong. Here's the second twist. This discovery is not just about water. It is about life. For a long time, scientists have been asking one big question. Is there, or was there ever, life anywhere beyond Earth? Mars has always been the best bet. It is close, it is rocky, it has water, or had water, or might have water. But the surface of Mars is a terrible place for life. It is bombarded by radiation from the sun because it has no magnetic field. The air is so thin that liquid water cannot survive on the surface. The temperatures swing wildly between day and night. Any life on the surface would have been killed off a long time ago. That is why scientists have been looking underground. Underground, you are shielded from radiation. Underground, the temperatures are more stable. Underground, if there is water, life has a chance. The problem was, nobody knew if there was water down there in liquid form. Ice is not the same. Ice is frozen. Most life on Earth needs liquid water to survive. Now we know the liquid water is there, and that means the conditions for life are not just possible. They are real. They are right now. Life could exist on Mars right now, hiding under the ground, in the cracks, in the dark, in the water. We have not found it yet. We do not know if it is there. But the place where it could be, the place that could be home to alien microbes swimming in alien groundwater, just got a lot bigger. A lot deeper. A lot more real. Think about what that means. For most of your life, you've been told that Mars is a desert. A museum piece. A place for robots to roll around and take pretty pictures. And now you're being told that underneath that desert, there is more water than all the rivers on Earth combined. There is enough water to fill an ocean 1 kilometer deep across the whole planet. There is water that has been sitting there, hidden for billions of years. There's water that could be home to life that has been living in the dark since before there were dinosaurs on Earth. That is not a small update. That is a rewriting of the most important chapter in the story of life in the solar system. But the third twist is this. If there is that much water underground, the story of how Mars died might be wrong, too. The old story says Mars lost its water to space. The water evaporated, turned into vapor, drifted up, and got blasted away by the solar wind. Some of it did. The new evidence says that most of it did not. Most of it went into the ground. The water seeped down through cracks in the rock as the atmosphere thinned. It sank deeper and deeper as the surface got colder and colder. And it is still there, locked into the rock like water locked into a sponge. That means Mars did not die the way we thought. It did not dry out completely. It retreated and went underground. And it is still there, waiting. A whole ocean of water hidden under the dust, hidden under the cold, hidden under the silence. And nobody knew. Not for 40 years of Mars exploration. Not for all the orbiters. Not for all the rovers. Not until one little lander sat still, listened to the ground, and heard the sound of something that should not be there. Here's the part that should really stop you in your tracks. This changes the search for life forever. For decades, the strategy has been to look at the surface, look at the ice, look at the dust, send rovers to scratch around in the dirt. But the real action, the real story, the real chance of finding something alive is deep underground. We cannot get there yet. Our drills on the rovers go down a few centimeters, maybe a meter or two. The water is kilometers down, but missions are already being planned. NASA and other space agencies are talking about drills, deep drills, robots that can burrow, concepts for machines that can melt their way through ice. The next big chapter of Mars exploration is not going to happen on the surface. It is going to happen underground, and it is going to happen in our lifetime. If this kind of story is what you come here for, subscribe now because we are just getting started. The next decade of space news is going to be wild, and you do not want to miss a single one of these moments. Let me back up for a second and explain why this matters for you, sitting here on Earth, watching this video right now. You might think Mars is far away and does not affect you, but think about this. The same instruments that found this water, the same math, the same kind of thinking, that is what tells us what planets look like across the galaxy. Every time we look at a rocky world around another star, we are asking the same question. Is there water? Could there be life? For years, the answer has been probably not. Mars is too dry. Worlds like Mars are probably dead. But if Mars was hiding an ocean of water all along, then maybe other worlds are hiding water too. Maybe what we see from a telescope is not the whole story. Maybe every rocky planet in the universe has a hidden ocean under its surface, just waiting to be found. That is not science fiction. That is what this discovery is pointing to. And if it is true, then the universe is not as empty as we thought. It is not as dead as we thought. It might be teeming with life, hiding in the dark, in the cracks, in the water, in worlds we cannot even see yet from here. And that is the real reason this story matters. It is not just about Mars. It is about what Mars is telling us about everything else. The red planet has been sitting up there in the sky for your entire life, and for the entire lives of everyone who came before you. And for almost all of that time, we thought we knew what it was. A desert, a wasteland, a dead rock. We sent robot after robot after robot to confirm that story. And every single one of them sent back pictures that seemed to confirm it. Dust, rock, sky, empty. We built an entire picture of Mars based on what we could see from the outside. And the inside turned out to be telling a completely different story. That should make you think about every other world we have looked at. That should make you think about every other mystery we think we have solved. Because if Mars taught us anything, it is this. The universe loves to surprise us. The universe loves to hide things in plain sight. And the things we are most sure about today might be the very things we have to rewrite tomorrow. The little lander that found all this is called InSight, and it died doing it. In 2022, dust covered its solar panels and it went silent. NASA tried one last time to reach it and got nothing back. The mission was officially declared over in December of 2022, a small robot sitting alone on a red rock in the middle of an empty plain with dust piling up on its shoulders. But before it died, it listened. It listened for 4 years. It listened to hundreds of Marsquakes. It heard something nobody else heard. And now its data is changing science forever. That is a kind of legacy. That is a kind of meaning. A small, cheap mission that almost nobody talked about when it launched turned out to be one of the most important missions in the history of Mars. And the team that built it, the scientists who pored over its data for years after it died, they changed how we see the planet, forever. Here's what I want you to sit with for a moment. For your entire life, you have lived in a universe that had a certain shape. The planets were the way you were taught they were. Mars was dry. The moon was dead. The outer planets were cold gas giants. That was the map. That was the picture. And now, in the span of a few years, that map is being redrawn. Under the surface of Mars, an ocean of water. In the clouds of Venus, hints of life. In the ice of Europa, more water than all of Earth. In the methane of Titan, chemistry that looks like the chemistry of life. The universe is not the quiet, empty, dead place we thought it was. It is loud. It is wet. It is active. It is hiding things everywhere. And every time we look closer, every time we listen harder, every time we send a robot to a place we think we know, we find something that breaks the story we told ourselves. That is what this discovery on Mars is really about. Not just water, not just life, not just NASA admitting it was wrong. It is about the fact that we do not know as much as we think we know. It is about the fact that the universe is full of surprises, and the only way to find them is to keep looking. The only way to hear them is to keep listening. The only way to find life is to keep searching. And the little robot called InSight, sitting in the dust on Mars, listening to the ground for 4 years, is proof of that. It listened, and the planet answered, and the answer was water. An ocean of water hiding under the rock, hiding under the cold, hiding in the dark, waiting for someone to come and find it. So what happens next? The short answer is, we do not know yet. The discovery is still new. The paper is still being checked. The science is still settling. But already missions are being planned. Already, scientists are drawing up new ways to drill, to burrow, to melt through the ice and get to the water underneath. The next Mars mission might not be a rover. It might be a drill. It might be something we have not even built yet. And when it goes, when it finally touches that water, we might find life. Not little green men, not aliens with antennas, just microbes. Tiny, simple, single-celled life swimming in alien groundwater in the dark, on another world. That is all it would take to change everything. That is all it would take to prove we are not alone. That is all it would take to make this little video feel like the most important video you have ever watched. But even if we do not find life tomorrow, even if the water is empty, even if Mars is still alone in the dark, this discovery still matters, because it tells us we were wrong. It tells us the universe is more complicated than we thought. It tells us there are oceans hiding where we were sure there was nothing. And it tells us that every time we are sure, every time we think we have the whole picture, we should look one more time. Because that is when the universe answers. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think this means. Do you think there's life underground on Mars right now? Do you think NASA was right to admit it was wrong? Or do you think they should have seen this coming? And if this kind of story matters to you, share this video with someone who still thinks Mars is just a dead rock. They need to see this. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being the kind of person who actually wants to know what is really going on out there. I will see you in the next one.